Song and shade, it is a creature made in song and shade. Join our work to heaven's gate, our hope to what is left, our hope to what is left. What is left? Imagine paradise.
Good afternoon. The honor falls to me to welcome you to the inaugural commencement of the Wendell Berry Farming Program of Sterling College. We're so grateful to have all of you here and to express our appreciation to all those who have supported the program as it's unfolded and grown in what everyone understands to be unprecedented times, and I promise that's the last time I will use that word during the course of these ceremonies. My name is Matthew Durr, and I'm the president of Sterling College and a board member at the Berry Center. And this is the first time in the 63-year history of Sterling College that we're hosting a commencement beyond the beautiful Green Mountains of Vermont. And so you 12 people represent a big change in the history and life of our college. But most importantly, we hope that you represent big change in our shared appreciation with the Berry Center and the community here in Newcastle of what a future just, equitable, and most importantly, a food system that uses nature as a measure. And thinking about the work that we're doing together, I'm just so clear that we share a sense of trust and friendship and commitment to community with all those here in Kentucky, and to have that relationship over the last 4 years has been so important, and to see it all come together today is really certainly rewarding. The very first meeting that we had to talk about the creation of this program really came about because of an introduction that Fred Kirschman made. And Fred was at the Leopold Center at Iowa State University. And it's a lesson in always paying attention to your good friends when their values guide the introductions that they want to make, because there was nothing, I think, in Mary Berry's mind at the time that would have led her to think that the first thing that she should do is have a partnership with a college way up in northern Vermont. And likewise, I waited probably too long in some ways to take Fred up on his advice and take the trip down to Newcastle and the Berry Center to talk about what we might do together. And what was interesting about that conversation is that it never occurred to me for a moment that the program wouldn't be here in Newcastle. And when I started to describe what I thought Sterling and the Berry Center might do together with that generational, local understanding of this place and its people, the first thing that Mary said was, Well, that's been what my mother has been saying forever. And so I think both Fred and Tanya deserve some credit for all of us being here today and inspiring and informing what has come since then. But this really isn't the first time Sterling and the Berry family and this place and our place back in Vermont have met. If you follow the history of Sterling College back to the late 1970s, it was the publication of The Unsettling of America that informed the sustainable agriculture program that Sterling created. People like Ross Morgan and Ned Houston and Bill Manning, who were all important leaders at Sterling. And then to my delight, a man named Ted Birmingham, who was really the first president of Sterling College, apparently gave Wendell Berry Teamster lessons back at some point. Although you have the distinction, Wendell didn't actually earn a Sterling degree. You all will have that. But there's a long connection in values and certainly a delight in being able to share them in creating this program together. This program wouldn't be possible without the support of the Novo Foundation, a foundation that is committed to social justice, committed to a future of ecological thinking and action that we all recognize and support. So we're grateful to the Novo Foundation and the work that they've done with us. Now it falls to me to introduce Mary Berry, my friend and I would say co-conspirator in this work, who inspires me to work harder every day, and whose vision as founder and executive director of the Berry Center has made this program possible. And Mary also serves as a trustee of Sterling College, and we're very much honored for the vision that she helps guide the college with as well. So welcome. Thank you for joining us today. On behalf of the trustees and faculty of the college, let's have a commencement together. All right.
Thank you so much, Matthew. It is true that my mother said early on that the farming program, any kind of farming program that we did in collaboration with anybody, should be in Henry County. And my mother is almost always right, something like 98% of the time. So she just waits, and then things come around her way. But I will say, if Matthew had not stood on the back porch of the Berry Center and said, well, this looks like a campus to me, this just wouldn't have happened. In a world that only likes big solutions, this suggestion of his, a college president, might be ignored. But it is a radical change in agricultural education, and it wouldn't have happened without Sterling College and without President Matthew Durr. Which brings me to my dear friend Leah Bands, that I could talk about for quite some time, and I won't, except to say that without her, this program wouldn't exist anywhere. She, along with Rick and Perry Thomas and Ed Fredrickson, have moved here to teach in this program. For a person who felt that moving 3 miles over the Henry County line into Trimble County some years ago was a huge, big deal, this kind of commitment, or a commitment to a program and to a way of thinking about farming that will move someone from, say, Vermont to Kentucky, is extraordinary. And I am most grateful, most grateful. So congratulations to the first graduates of the Wendell Berry Farming Program of Sterling College. I speak now for myself, certainly, but also for my friends and colleagues at the Berry Center. We have loved having you here, and we hate to see you go. And so we are comforted by the fact that many of you will stay close to us. For those of you who will be farther away, please stay in touch. The first year you all were here, you were in and out of the center almost daily, and it was wonderful. We've missed you this year. And now I speak for myself when I say that I knew that we wanted to have a farming program in Henry County, and that program would presumably have students. I was taken by surprise by how much I have loved having you with us. You are the first class, and you won't be forgotten. From the first time I heard the idea of a major in homecoming rather than a major in upward mobility from West Jackson, I've thought that possibly the most important piece of a curriculum must be economics. I've come to call this in my imagination economics according to Steve Smith, who is my husband, who uses his good sense before he ever uses any money, and he hardly ever uses any money. He has more good sense than money. You came to us with your own good sense, the evidence of that being your desire to study in this program. Your good sense has been added to by your teachers, by books, and by the farmers in the community that you have spent time with. You'll need all the good sense you've got, and you'll need to keep adding to it. You will be encouraged by almost all the dominant voices in agriculture to spend more money. And I'm afraid I think that is true in all of agriculture. And so I want to tell you a bit of a story about a farmer named Meb Ford. Some of you have been on Ford Lane, I imagine, where the Ford family lived and farmed for some generations. When Meb and his brother Mob, short for Melvin and Marvin, got old, it was thought by some that they should move out to the main road and away from their old farmhouse that was a mile or so down a gravel road that was subject to flooding. I've imagined that Meb would not have wanted to move, but also would not have wanted to cause trouble and worry. When my father visited their new-to-them house, he said to Mob, "Well, it's nice." And Mob said, "It's better than what we had." And Meb said this, "Something better, something better." Everybody's talking about something better. The important thing is to feel good and be proud of what you've got. Don't matter if it ain't nothing but a log pen. I have been an imperfect learner of this lesson, but I have tried to learn it, and I want you to try too. And this is survival if you want to farm, and also contentment and happiness. Now, to my job. I've been asked many times what it was like to grow up in my parents' house. I answer that it was fine except for the constant humiliation. Every year I get farther away from my childhood, but some things you don't get over easily. My parents moved to a small farm on the Kentucky River called Lane's Landing, not terribly far from here, in 1965, to live and to farm. Even at 7, I could tell that they were going about things incorrectly, that possibly everything did not have to be done the hardest way possible. I went along with my parents' eccentricities without causing too much upset until the composting privy was added to a way of life that seemed very close to camping. Well, the composting privy was the most well-publicized toilet in Kentucky in the 70s, and I was a teenager who just wanted to fit in. Born into a family of people with all kinds of scruples, it required letters to editors, marches for a variety of causes like peace, and actually living the way you thought you should live made that virtually impossible. I didn't really think that they were wrong about anything. I just thought it would be nice if it could all be less well documented in newspapers, magazines, and books that were published at an alarming rate. By the time I left for college, there must have been a general sigh of relief. I am now 63 and have lived and farmed in north central Kentucky all of my adult life. My home is a small farm on the Little Kentucky River. Our old farmhouse has a composting toilet that my almost Amish husband made out of scrap lumber in a bucket. My life is fairly public since starting the Berry Center to continue the work of my family for small farmers and land-conserving communities. Sometimes I think my parents were amused by it all and have had the good grace to keep it to themselves, except for my mother. And I have 3 wonderful daughters who have been proud participants in the life and work of struggling farm community. So this is what I want to say to my father and my mother and my grandparents and the community that tolerated and loved a silly girl who grew up to join them in their love for a place and for farming. Thank you for making homecoming possible for me and for my children, and I will work for the vision of a healthy, prosperous countryside that has been passed to me from 8 generations of farmers for the rest of my life. And so it is with gratitude and love that I introduce my father, Wendell Berry, as the commencement speaker for the first graduating class of the Wendell Berry Farming Program of Sterling College.
I feel like I'm going to be talking to a groundhog. Thank you, Mary. And I thank all who are responsible for the honor of speaking to these people and to these graduates. I hope, graduates, that I won't say anything that's going to surprise you. Though I've lived in cities, I've always had the country way of seeing that was carefully given to me by my upbringing. My point of view is from ground level. I judge things above ground by their effect or influence on the ground. My thoughts at first were guided by my inherited inclination to see the good care of the land as the highest human obligation, and the good care of the human community as the second highest. These principles of mine were radically amplified, clarified, and set in order by my reading many years ago of Aldo Leopold's essay, The Land Ethic. That ethic, to one coming upon it in the midst of our darkened and disordered age, declares itself with a sudden brightness of obvious truth. Leopold wrote it out in a single sentence that has lighted my way from the moment I read it. The land ethic, he said, simply enlarges the boundaries of the community to include soils, waters, plants, and animals, or collectively, the land. When I read that, my two thoughts of the land and the community became one thought. The land ethic, Leopold said, changes the role of Homo sapiens from conqueror of the land community to plain member and citizen of it. And so we can say that to make the whole sense of any dispute between two merely human sides, the land community must be represented, not as an equal third side, but as the side whose fate ultimately will decide the fate of the other sides. From the point of view of the land community, as I have watched for most of my life the economic landscapes in many places, but most continuously here at home, it has been plain to me that our country is in decline and our people with it. The country is in decline because the people are not properly using it and caring for it. The people are in decline for the same reason. Like every knowledgeable observer, I feel that I am watching a long worsening, extremely complicated emergency that is unnoticed by almost everybody. The emergency, to define it the shortest way, is that both the land and the people are unhealthy. We no longer speak of health as the natural or normal condition of our bodies and the world. We speak of health as the hoped-for result of the use of products produced by the health industry, which thrives upon illness. As the land and people languish, the economy prospers for a while. Because we have so nearly destroyed the sense of the word health, we find little use for it. When a pandemic strikes and a lot of people are getting sick and many are dying, the public talk is all of cures and preventions, purchased supplies, the getting and spending of a lot of money. Nobody has much to say about health. This is unhealthy. It is also insane. What was and is the best prevention against a pandemic? The answer obviously is health, natural or normal health. In this world of easy communication, in which disease is easily communicated and pandemics are possible, the best preparation was and is to be a healthy people in a healthy country. The best preparation for the events and effects of climate change or any other calamity, just as obviously, is to be a healthy people in a healthy country. The best preparation for the events and effects of climate change, or any, I'm reading this, excuse me. To be a healthy people in a healthy country, but from that possibility, we're now radically and perilously displaced. To deal with so great a problem, the best idea may not be to go ahead in our present state of unhealth to more disease and more product development. It may be that our proper first resort should be to history, to see if the truth we need to pursue might be behind us, where we have ceased to look. In 1940, in the United States, there were 6 million farms, of which the average size was 175 acres. In 2012, there were 2 million farms containing an average of 434 acres. If we consider that on every one of those 4 million lost farms, there would have been a farmer and family, or a tenant farmer and family, and on some of them, one or more hired hands, and maybe another family. We see that we're reckoning with a movement of many millions of people off the farms and into the cities, or into city work, in about a single lifetime. One set of numbers I've used says that 25 million people left the farms between 1940 and 1967, or in less than half a lifetime. When we try just to guess at all the personal, social, and economic adjusting that would be involved in so massive a population, making so fundamental a change, we know that the problems would be incalculable in numbers, in seriousness, and in longevity. This is social and economic mobility, often praised, but common sense tells us that its repercussions and ripple effects will be with us a long time, with most of the social problems afflicting the cities. From the rural point of view, the view from ground level, those of us who still have it can see consequences that are rural, equally troubling, and in some ways permanently damaging to the country. The removal from the land of so many people removes from the land also those people's love, care, skill, and work. And it removes the same love, care, skill, and work from those people. This is an enormously consequential loss to both the land and the people. This is not something you will hear said because it cannot be said, because it is carefully not seen by the professors and other urban professionals of agriculture. But mere arithmetic tells us that so many people who most directly or so many people who most directly and practically love the country or who most need to do so are removed from the country, then the country will be less loved. There will be a great reduction of patriotism in the true sense of that word. That is love for country, not the nation and the economy. Common sense surely can tell us that one farmer or one farm family can pay closer attention and give better care to a farm of 175 acres than to a farm of 434 acres. And it does not require a committee of advanced experts to surmise that a small town, Newcastle or Campbellsburg or Port Royal, would be better supported economically by a lot of small farms than by a few big ones. It is important to understand that this drastic reduction of the farm population had the approval and the encouragement of the agricultural powers that be. It has been, in effect, our farm policy since World War II. The ruling doctrine was that the inefficient, so-called inefficient, and otherwise dispensable farmers could be replaced along with their love, care, skill, and work by industrial technologies. In 1967, a presidential commission declared that this country's biggest farm problem was a surplus of farmers. Probably for every effect, there is more than one cause. And there were several reasons for people to leave farming. The most effective way to get rid of farmers and to enrich the corporations that supply the expensive inputs and purchase the cheapened harvests is by policy to permit and even encourage overproduction. So long as farmers do not control any part of the farm economy, they cannot mutually thrive. They can only compete against each other, increasing production to take advantage of high prices or to compensate for low prices, and so driving one another and themselves into bankruptcy. For this reason, production control with parity prices, as in the old tobacco program, is a fundamental necessity of agricultural policy. The loss of so many farmers has not improved the economic security of the surviving farmers. Year after year, generation after generation, they have continued to go under until almost none are left. The logical portent is that they will keep failing until all the land will be owned by large banks and corporations. Farmers and the land have been sacrificed to the need for cheap food, just as the miners and the land of the Appalachian coal fields have been sacrificed to the need for cheap energy. Industrialism requires dispensable land and dispensable people in order to provide cheap goods. It is true, and much noticed only lately, that more black farmers have failed in proportion to their total numbers than white farmers, and that this is largely attributable to racial discrimination in the agencies of the United States Department of Agriculture. That is a correctable wrong, and it ought to be corrected. But it would be wrong also to assume that the decline of black farmers is the result only or mainly of racial discrimination. It is necessary to see operating beyond race prejudice, a prejudice against farmers, particularly against small farmers, and to see operating beyond those prejudices the fundamental dependence of the industrial economy upon the dispensability of human workers. Some farmers of both races, of course, have left farming because they preferred city work or city life. But for whatever reasons, the cultural and economic bond between land and people has been broken. The land has lost the work that it needs to have from the people it sustains, and the people have lost the work of the land that would be sustaining to them. Our agrarian ancestors of all races understood this mutuality and taught it, but as a people, we have failed to learn it. As a result, we live in and from an abandoned, unloved, toxic, eroded, and degraded country that most of our people have forgotten or never knew. And our people are uprooted, scattered, isolated in their multitude, frightened, angry, and as unhealthy as the land. The Army finds only 20% of our young people, 1 in 5, fit for service. In this condition, we confront the present pandemic. Many who contract the virus are already sick. We have so far condemned our land and ourselves by ignoring or defying fundamental laws of nature and of human nature. The law most dangerous to violate can be stated this way: if the land is to be used by people, then it must be used by people who love it, who are culturally prepared and instructed to use it lovingly, and whose cultures, therefore, are sustained economically. When that law is disobeyed, then the land will be ruined, as ours now is being ruined. This understanding of our condition comes to us from the agrarian traditions of nearly every race and culture that I have so far read about. Nearly all have held the earth to be a living creature whose life we must choose to share on its terms. We have, of course, one other choice. We can choose against the earth's life and its terms, which is to choose our death. And this is the choice we now are making. I know, graduates, that I have given you so far a fairly unhappy commencement speech. I think that I've told you the truth, or have tried to do so, but only with the aim of laying before you the work I believe you're called to do. I believe that you, along with all the rest of us, are called to take good care of our country, which in the foreseeable future will mean both using it well and, so far as we can, healing the wounds we have given it. But I am on the side of happiness. I am in favor of it for the most practical of reasons. I think it is one of the necessities of life, as much needed as light and air, food and drink. The word happy is related to luck, but as an idea, I think it is close kin to health. I want my pastures and woodlands to be happy and to communicate their happiness to me, which they do. As a livestockman, I want my farm animals to be as happy as the native deer, their heads up and their eyes bright, the same signs parents want to see in their children. I'm saying as a farmer that I have wanted to be made happy by my work, and I often have been made happy in that way and in other ways. And so it is clear that before ending this speech, I have got to get it in line with my principles. Maybe the best, briefest way to do that is to give you some advice about how to be happy. If I were still the young man I was last year, I would be embarrassed to be caught giving advice. But now that I'm old, I feel expected to advise. First of all, then, if you must devote yourself to solving a national or a global problem, and I think you must, do not think of it only as a big problem requiring a big governmental solution. I say this knowing that certain helps must come from the government. But if you decide that a big governmental solution alone will solve the problem, you risk several kinds of unhappiness. Remember that any big solution will depend upon innumerable little solutions such as you will need to make in yourself, in your household, in your garden, in your trade, or on your farm, in your community. This calls for acts of affection and work that are within your reach and competence, tasks and duties that, if done well, will make you happy. Second, do not make the epidemic mistake of separating work and happiness. Don't think of work as a misery to be endured until quitting time and vacation and retirement, when the work is done and you can then begin to be happy. If your work makes you unhappy day after day, you have the wrong work. Any work may make you miserable sometimes. People who love to farm may find themselves mending a wire fence in a freezing rain, or getting livestock out of the road in the middle of the night. But you see my point. To have good work to do, that you are called to do, and are capable of doing well, work that therefore can make you happy, is sanity and health, also a blessing. Third, to protect yourself and your eligibility to be happy by protecting your money. Of all commodities, the one most advertised and most sold surely must be happiness. But of all commodities, because the verities stay true, happiness certainly is the least bought. That is why the wish to be happy so far exceeds happiness. So take care of your money. If in your pursuit of happiness, you've got to go somewhere, or change your clothes, or write a check, or present your credit card, think again. Happiness is not a likely result of persuasion or expert advice, nor is it reliably a result of politics. Remember that happiness is often cheap and oftener free. It can come from work and then from rest. The happiness that comes from flowers, butterflies, birds, and other beautiful creatures is abounding and free. It costs nothing to enjoy other people's beautiful children. In a time of solemn political angers and hatreds such as now, happiness becomes twice happy by being subversive. Therefore, don't let the wrong people get a hold of your money. And so, young friends, blessings on you. Be well and do well.
I found myself thinking it's not every day you have Wendell Berry open for you. My name's Rachel. I'm a student in the farming program here, and it is my deep honor to share a few words. A letter to my friends before parting. To be among the first has been no small feat and no small honor. As it is with all things, it has come with anticipation, joy, and the awkwardness of first steps. But from our very first moments together, we've approached this space with reverence and humility, ever aware of the gravity of our place. Let me reaffirm once more to each of you that you are not here by accident or mistake. There has been no great error, but neither has it been some stroke of luck or simple good fortune. You sit here today because you are worthy. As I reflect on this season, I find it's only natural to ask myself the question, what have I learned? Or as Hannah Cox put it recently, have I learned anything? I know that I speak for all of us when I say that the lessons we walk away with are not what we may have anticipated, perhaps never what we would have chosen for ourselves, but all the more necessary because of this. So what have we learned? We learned very quickly how to be flexible and how to adapt. We've learned that community can be built among the most eclectic groups and that it is exactly what you make it. It reflects you with unforgiving clarity. Community is not simply some framework that you come into or stand underneath, but something that you build day by day. We've learned to ask the questions that have no answers, the kind that you spend your lifetime answering, and that even deceivingly simple questions can unravel into complexity when you take the time to consider them fully. We've learned to read a landscape, to embrace the power of observation, and to find joy in the smallest of things and the smallest of creatures. We've learned to test our limits, to find our strengths, and to work together in our weaknesses. We've explored what it means to build a world where success means going home instead of getting out, where success means having enough instead of so much, where we measure our economy in inches of topsoil instead of profit margins, where a surplus equates to an abundance of earthworms or dung beetles, where we're impressed not by long-winded speeches, but by those who are comfortable with themselves in the quiet of the woods, where we make a home for those among us who have been uprooted or cast out. My hope for you is that your passion and emotions will always propel you into action, that your knowledge will give way to wisdom, that your dreams will ground you instead of taking flight, that on the days that you want to call it quits, you'll remember the reason you began, that even if nothing changes, even if we're simply, literally holding ground, that it will be enough, that you always remember the farmers who came before us, that you always work with the next generation in your mind's eye, that the vision of the world which could be will never keep you from loving the one that you've been given. When I think of our season together, I'm reminded of countless camping trips, farm tours, late-night study sessions, root beer floats, being packed into a van in proximity that would break all social distancing guidelines, and the quiet work of learning the world and our own identity from a fixed place. I can't help but reflect on the awe that I felt being among this group and the realization that there were 11 other humans just as weird and quirky as me who were just as desperate for a like-minded community and hungry to learn. But friends, I tell you now, this is not the pinnacle or the peak. No matter how wonderful our time together has been, you will not be condemned to conjure up something similar. You will not go from here only to find yourself attempting to muster up some resemblance of this season. I promise you that these are not the glory days. The best is yet to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. My name is Leah Bands, and I have the great good pleasure of serving as the Dean of the Wendell Berry Farming Program. I too have a letter of sorts. Friends, family, neighbors, I'm so proud to congratulate the inaugural class of the Wendell Berry Farming Program. We owe a debt of gratitude to the host of people who made this possible. This includes the collective communities of Sterling College and the Berry Center, as well as a litany of farmers, some of whom are here today, thank you, neighbors and organizations conserving land and cultures. We're especially grateful to the Wendell Berry Farming Program teachers and guides who have dedicated their lives to this place and its people. I'm thinking particularly of Rick Thomas, and Dr. Ed Fredrickson, Dr. Perry Thomas, Jonathan Shepard, Shannon Boyd, Amber Inscore-Essick, and the staff of the Berry Center. 1,000,000 times over, we also thank our students' families and friends who've supported them and, by extension, us. You know, whether studying the effects of hard histories on a place and its people, or reveling in the endless wonders of farms and woods, together we've learned and practiced neighborliness, generosity, stewardship, and grace. Grace is the figurative and literal banner that we hold, as shown in the beautiful piece at the entrance here that's created by fiber artist Joanne Weiss, especially for this program. On that panel, Joanne hand-scripted Wendell's poem, Grace, which is dedicated to our good friend Gurney Norman. At the risk of embarrassing Wendell by reading one of his poems in front of him, also, no one will be surprised at all that I will read one last poem to you all as students of the Wendell Berry Farming Program. The woods is shining this morning, red, gold, and green the leaves lie on the ground or fall, or hang full of light in the air still. Perfect in its rise and in its fall, it takes the place that it's been coming to forever. It has not hastened here or lagged. See how surely it has sought itself, its roots passing lordly through the earth. See how with confusion it is, all that it is and how flawless its grace is. Running or walking, the way is the same. Be still, be still. He moves your bones and the way is clear. Friends, be still and take the place you have been coming to forever. In this vein, I present to you the students of the Wendell Berry Farming Program of Sterling College. They are the candidates for the Bachelor of Arts degree. When a candidate's name is called, I'll ask them to stand for recognition, and then they'll come forward and receive their diplomas. And guests, if you all don't mind, just to hold your applause until actually they receive their diploma, that would be useful, because I have so many good things to say about them, and I want you to all hear them. Elizabeth Camfield. Lizzie's senior research project consists of a plan for her family's Pickle Creek farm in Campbellsburg, Kentucky, including a market garden, fermentation and preservation, draft animal power, education, and animal husbandry. Lizzie majored in sustainable agriculture and is earning a minor in draft animal power systems. Hannah Elizabeth Cox. Hannah's senior year research project consists of a business plan for a pastured poultry enterprise on her family's Walnut Hill farm in Port Royal, Kentucky. She's my good neighbor. Hannah majored in sustainable agriculture and is earning a minor in draft animal power systems. Grace DeRushy. Grace self-designed a major in agricultural education and practices empowering young people through animal husbandry and plant science with a special focus on social justice. Grace. Gabriel Benjamin Francisco. For his senior year research project, Gabe conducted a woodlot survey of the Berry Center Farm, which houses the Wendell Berry Farming Program. The inventory consisted of hardwood species in a typical Kentucky farm woodlot, and he documented the decline of the ash family of trees and the succession replacing that canopy. Gabe majored in sustainable agriculture and earned a minor in draft animal power systems, and he's joined today by our good friend Marley as well. Brennan J. Gallagher. In his senior year research project, Brennan identified the many needs of forage-based dairy systems. Brennan majored in sustainable agriculture and earned a minor in draft animal power systems. August Lee Graymig. August Lee's capstone project consisted of a compilation of her fiber art and small animal business plan and a rationale, as well as life goals expressed through an academic book on ecocide and re-empowerment. She's also conducted a series of goal-oriented skill-building exercises. You'll see her handiwork. August Lee majored in sustainable agriculture and is earning a minor in draft animal power systems. Rachel Hampton. For her senior year research project, Rachel conducted research and developed a business plan and foundation for the development of a heritage hog cooperative. The cooperative will aid breeders and organizations in efforts to preserve heritage breed swine. Rachel majored in sustainable agriculture and is earning a minor in draft animal power systems. Jennifer Laura Palmer. Jennifer's capstone project deals with the art and history of seed saving. She is creating a seed library, business, and community outreach workshop plan. Jennifer majored in sustainable agriculture. Jean Catherine Pauley. For her senior project, Katie developed farm design, layout, and management plans for her family's Red Bud Farm in Scott County, Kentucky. She instituted a number of pasture and woodland restoration practices through this project as well. Katie majored in sustainable agriculture and is earning a minor in draft animal power systems. Ashlyn Munzel Tan. Ashlyn's capstone project is entitled Everybody Eats. He is using community-supported agriculture as a bridge to connect farmers, chefs, artisans, activists, and individuals with each other in Louisville and Henry County to create a food system that's both accessible and malleable. Ashlyn majored in sustainable agriculture. Emily Catherine Wade. In her senior year research project, Emily developed plans for and started implementing an improved boar-goat breeding program. Emily majored in sustainable agriculture and is earning a minor in draft animal power systems. Amelia Zanarino. Amelia created an illustrated field guide to flowering herbaceous plants around the Canes Run waterway on the Berry Center farm for her senior year research project. It includes original watercolor paintings and pertinent information about how to identify plants and to understand what their presence indicates about the land. Amelia majored in sustainable agriculture. Now, we are, some of us are starting a special tradition in these times. If you will, to signify your graduation, for those of you who have them, will you please move your tassels from the right to the left? And with that, I present to you the inaugural 2021 class of the Wendell Berry Farming Program of Sterling College. Congratulations, friends. So guests, please, if you don't mind, to keep standing during the recessional. The graduation party is going to proceed out to the yard, and then you can join us out there and celebrate.